Hey there everyone, Mazarok here, and today I'm doing an updated 10.1.5 updated Augmentation Evoker guide because I've got to play with time skip, and I have to tell you what, I really like it. Before we do get into it though, please do like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. There's a Patreon link down below if you wish to support me directly. Discord link, Twitch link, and a merch link, all of that is down below in the description box as well as the build code for this video. And if some of this stuff goes over your head, there is a beginner's guide to Augmentation Evoker where I go over everything in a little bit more detail in a more basic fashion that I'll probably be overlooking as kind of more common knowledge here. So let's get into it though. So this is kind of the build that I've been working, and this relies entirely on time skip with interwoven threads. And the reason why is the cooldown of your abilities are reduced by 10%. And before I was really playing around with this, I didn't realize how good this actually was, because if we go look at some of our other abilities, prescience is reduced by a second. Goes from 12 seconds to 11 seconds, which allows you to have higher uptime on both of your DPS targets and Mythic Plus. Blistering Scales goes down to 27 seconds. Cauterizing Flame. This is your bleed removal and everything else, curse, disease, whatever, but especially bleed with how good that is, goes down to 54 seconds. And I know that, a 6-second knockoff doesn't sound that big, but holy crap, let me tell you it is. This allows you to solo some bleed mechanics in some of these dungeons. And of course you have Expunge, which becomes a poison dispel every 7.2 seconds, right? Just get to clear more frog poisons out of Halls of Infusion. Lots of good stuff there, but that's literally everything. Gives you more Obsidian Scales charges. Ebon Might goes down to 27%. Now with this build here, 27%, 27 seconds along with Fire Breath. With this build here, by the way, I did notice that my uptime on Ebon Might was about the same as without, but I just had to rely a lot less on some luck, right? I've tried Living Flames to kind of proc some Essence Burst and things like that. I did an Azure Strike build as well, where I had an Echo and hit another target to try and proc more Essence Burst as well. And I found that it was kind of all the same, but just being able to bring that utility down is so incredibly strong, right? More Zephyrs, more Renewing Blazes, and all of that along the way. Now, for a couple of a couple of flex points along the way, you can always take Upheaval and the Tectonic Locust. You can remove that, and as well you can go Font of Magic. You can take that out as well if you want to go down into Spatial Paradox, if that's something you and your healer absolutely want. But this is something I would ask a pug healer first, like, hey, is this something that you like or you expect or that you want and need? You know, kind of go along that route first. And of course, you can always take the point out of Pupil of Alexstrasza if that's what you so want. But with this, you also get a nice 20-second and a nice 18-second interrupt. You can take the point out of Rescue Zephyr if you don't need it here. Like here, I was just running, the last dungeon we did was in Altharis, and I really like rescuing people around Altharis. You can also go with Twin Guardian to help give them a big absorb shield to rescue you and you. Now for me, this wasn't really a problem, but because I took the point out of Overawe for Raging, and out of Twin Guardian, and I put it into Overawe for Raging, but I'm also not doing incredibly high keys. I'm sticking around the 22, 21, 22s, and just having my fun there. But Twin Guardian is really big, especially because Obsidian Scales no longer becomes your personal defensive, but a group-wide defensive. So that's something you're going to want to think about maintaining or keeping in or anything like that, and kind of working that around. But I took the point out of there, but you could easily take the point out of Zephyr depending on the dungeon or the content and put it into Overawe for your mass soothe. Very important to kind of keep that for Raging Weeks, obviously, but outside of Raging Weeks, this is actually a pretty good basis to go around. In Corporeal Weeks, you're going to want to keep Sleepwalk up so you can take your point out of where you need to there. Fire Breath is obviously, the Leaping Flames is really strong. That way you can fully empower your Fire Breath at the tip of scales or something like that, and just have Living Flames going out everywhere, giving you more chance at Essence Burst, healing your friends, and all that fun stuff as well. With this build here, I've tested, like I said, I tested Living Flame and I tested Azure Strike, and I noticed that the damage was about the same. But if you're going to commit to one outside of movement scenarios. So obviously, if you have to move, and you still want to press buttons, hit your Azure Strikes while you're moving and doing mechanics. Aside from that, with all of these Living Flame talents, cast Living Flame over Azure Strikes. Obviously, if you have Verdant Embrace off cooldown, you can reduce the cooldown, reduce the cast time of your next Living Flame by 40% by, healing a friend or party or yourself. You can Verdant Embrace yourself every 22 seconds with this build, so do remember. But this also allows you to fly to them, gives you quick movement, and just allows you to kind of fly around the battlefield a lot more. Don't forget about your Source of Magic and your Potent Mana. Now, the Source of Magic, increasing the target's healing and damage done by 3%. This is your healer in Mythic Plus. Trust me, they will love you for this buff. Keep that up the entire time. Pressing Roar with Overawe for your Mass Soothe, or plan your Pressing Roar with your stuns, with your party and things like that. If you know they're going to be doing a lot of CC, a Pressing Roar is really, really strong with things like Paladin, increasing the power of Hodge just that much more and going around and just really making you an absolute monster. But you're getting a lot of good cooldown reduction with this, just baseline, which allows you to keep, like I said, things like Prescience up a lot more. Ebon Might was about the same, but you're going to get more upheavals in the long run, being able to knock down a couple seconds off that just passively. Really, really strong. All in all, I really, really like the basics of this build, and it allows you to kind of get everything you need or everything you want dungeon by dungeon and move things around. So I will actually put this talent build in here, not the one for Raging Week, but the one for Raging Week, I did indeed take the point out of Twin Guardian and go there. But if you're also running, you could also do that with Zephyr, like I said before, but really up to you. This is the talent build that I've been running. Augmentation is all about keeping that Ebon Might stuff, your Might stuff, Ebon Might buff up. So this is, you want to be pooling resources at the end of, like, once your Ebon Might drops off, if it does, it's gonna happen from time to time. There's, you can't have full uptime. Don't cast Eruption, don't spend Essence, don't do anything that is an Empower spell. Anything that only extends the duration of Ebon Might and doesn't give you a fresh Ebon Might is one of those things that you do not want to press while Ebon Might is not up. Absolutely make sure that you are doing that. And the reason why is because you want to pool those resources for the next time your Ebon Might comes up. You can just spam into your Eruptions, your power spells, and then go from there. And honestly, Upheaval is incredibly broken. It's so fun. The amount of stops that you can get in the game, AoE stop with this that you can get in with the right timing, once you kind of learn the right mechanics that you want to kind of stop all around, you can really get a lot of value out of this as a stop. While Fire Breath is my first main extender. Now, if you notice here, Ebon Might 27 seconds, Fire Breath 27 seconds. I'm pretty much always directly going into an Ebon Might into a Fire Breath. That is pretty much always what I'm doing, while I'm keeping Upheaval for kind of the stops. I'm never holding it for long, mind you, okay? But if I know there's something that's going to stop in a couple of seconds, I'll hit, like, if I go Ebon Might Fire Breath, and I know something's coming up, I might Eruption, Upheaval, right? Or I will just send it depending on what the pull is, and that's completely up to you to judge. But the more things you can stop with Upheaval with a knockup is incredibly strong. So this is something that you're going to want to think about. But like I said, the nice pairing is Ebon Might and Fire Breath. You get the extension from Fire Breath. You can obviously go Ebon Might into your Tip the Scales Fire Breath as well. Really, really strong to do that. And just kind of helps you keep that Ebon Might up a lot longer. Like I said, I've been having a lot of fun with this spec, just kind of working in all the little min-maxing and trying to keep everything there. The Azure Strike build that I was playing, I opted for Echoing Strike. I took out Zephyr, and I had Protracted Talons here. And what I would do, this was literally just fishing for Essence Bursts. The moment I had, so Ebon Might, you spend everything you can to just, extend the full duration. And then you would Azure Strike and just try and get Essence Burst. And the moment you get an Essence Burst, because Azure Strike doesn't have a cast time, right? It's just strictly a global. I was able to fish for a lot more Essence Bursts with this build than I had been in other builds, which actually ended up freeing up a lot of the Living Flame talents. But when you give up those living flame talents, you also give up the off healing that it does. And in fact, I noticed that my personal damage was actually about the same. There was really no loss between either or, because you are getting the echoes from Azure Strikes. You're able to cast more of them because they are just a global and not a cast time. So if you are in a position where you're kind of uncomfortable trying to stop the cast for Living Flames to try and get your Essence Burst and repool your resources, you can take out these Living Flame talents. You can free those up and take anything else down the tree if you want, and kind of stick with this here and try and fish for those. And I noticed that I had really no problem with my uptime on Ebon Might with this build, but I did notice that the off healing was off because obviously, you know, the Living Flame jumps to other targets and things like that, which you really didn't need Living Flames. And there was just a different synergy to the build, but it did open up some more utility along the way. So that's something that you can opt into if you want. But I have rambled for a little bit long here. We're just going to get to the stats. Stats, obviously, Mastery, 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 Mastery. If you are rocking the Spoils of Naltharis, only ever hit this with Mastery. I have had some success and some luck going with a little bit more haste and some crit. I am trying to find some more crit gear where I don't lose any mastery, because obviously, you know, mastery is insanely important, right? That's the whole point of this, is with mastery you get that nice big verse buff, right? Like 17.8%, and that's given to your allies by using empower spells and going from there. So if you are just opting for outstops with upheaval, by the way, you go Ebon Might, Fire Breath, Upheaval, and immediately get those buffs out for the verse, so that way, especially if you're trying to plan around cooldowns, right? If both of your DPS have cooldowns ready to go at the start of a pull, you're going to want to get these two out as fast as possible. But if only one of your DPS has cooldowns at the start of a pull, go near that DPS, Ebon Might, Fire Breath, and make sure that they have the verse buff, and then the other one can get the verse buff after the upheaval goes off if you need to use it as a stop. And these are some of those little min-maxy things that I love along the way. I found at 18%, 18% haste, I found that the spec was really not enjoyable for me, but that is personal. So if you want to reduce the amount of haste that you have and go for crit, because there is some weird synergies with crit with extensions, you can do that, and it will probably amount to the same. But I found the spec just played a lot better at between 22 and 24% haste, and obviously stacking as much mastery as possible. Like for this here, I have a crit haste crafted chest, and I am going to be crafting another one. I'm just debating whether I'm going to go with crit mastery or whether I'm going to be going with haste mastery, but I have been leaning over to the crit mastery side of things, just to kind of make sure that goes on, or I might just recraft this one with the stats that I want. We'll have to see what happens. But yeah, so obviously trinkets, the class trinket is really, really good when it procs. It's a big intellect proc, which is really, really good for your Ebon Might. The Ominous Essence trinket with Mastery is obviously insanely good. Spoils of Naltharis is good as long as you're procking it with only the Mastery buff when it does come around. But try and get your trinkets that increase your intellect or your mastery, and then that's the way to go there. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope you are loving Augmentation Evoker as much as I have been. Have yourself a good one.